Hello. Welcome back. It's been about a week. I'm gonna move my camera a little bit. Perfect. No. Now I can slouch comfortably and still be in camera. This is great. Okay, let's have a listen to what you guys have been doing this this past week. Cat Girl Melody really makes me think that this is going to sound like, oh, my mixer, like anime. So let's see if that's the truth or not. Here we go. I mean, am I maybe missing a reference here? So, like, I don't mind it when that melody comes in, but I don't necessarily find, like, everything leading up to it, like the power chord sounding thing. I don't know. It's not really doing a whole lot for me. When the lead came in, it was kind of cool. But unless I'm missing, like, a reference like Cat Girl Melody, like, if this is, like, a pop culture reference that I'm unaware of, I'm not really a huge fan of just, like, the sounds and the chords that are being played. The only thing I really, and maybe this is a personal preference, but the only thing I really enjoyed was the chiptune lead that came in. I don't want to be overly harsh. I don't know. It's just not something that I think I would reach for. In terms of the mix, the snare sounds a lot louder than the kick. For the most part, I'm just not really into it musically, so it's hard for me to even really critique it. But I like that you're experimenting, so that's good. What's up, Vincent? I'm doing well. Yeah, sorry, Drop Pop. I don't really know what to say, except I don't really like this one that much. I like the chiptune solo. The rest of it is just kind of, I don't know. I don't get it, and I am having a hard time critiquing it or giving you any useful feedback on this one, so I apologize for that. But I feel like we're just hearing, like, the same sound being sustained for, like, a very long time. I feel like this chord thing, The dun 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 dun. That thing, I feel like it's going the whole time. It has kind of like a slightly Japanese vibe to it, and I feel like we're just listening to that interval, like the power chord interval, you know, the 7 semitone thing, the perfect fifth. We're just hearing this like move around, but we never get different chord structures. I don't know. I don't have fancy Discord things, but if you you can send whatever you want. I'll listen to whatever, any kind of music. You just have to go to discord.gg/Fowler Music. I don't have a link or whatever. Anyway, I think that's what I don't like. I think I don't really like the chords in the way that it's just kind of like a power chord that moves around in that synth, and we just hear that like bright sawtooth. Well, it's maybe more of a pulse or something. Anyway, whatever it is, I don't know. I don't love it. Sorry, that's the best I can do for that one. Let's move on. Okay, this one's Forever Safaro remix. So, is this another 192 kilobit per second submission? Let's see. It sure looks like it on the spectrogram. No, it's 320. The vocals are like really bright and washed out. I can't really understand what she's saying, and I also am having a hard time picking up on the tempo or the beat. I like where it's going. It's very extremely loud. And that the bass note, when you go down that second note, it's like too low. I'm willing to bet that's like a B or an A sharp or something. Let's see if my keyboard is working today. I think it's an A. Anyway, the bass, when it goes down that low, it kind of gets out of like the audible range, and it kind of feels a little murky and muddy and rumbly, and not necessarily like a tone, like a note specifically. So I would maybe try going up an octave for that note, maybe. Okay, I get it. So the remix is clearly taken from like a YouTube rip or something, because you can see the big lack of quality. But then when the track comes in, we go full 320. And also, I don't know, I feel like you might have more than one synth. You might have like your bass synth, and then you might have some other synth that is also contributing to the bass. The bottom end just feels rumbly and not stable. Like it doesn't feel like it's in control. So I would definitely go through and make sure you're doing proper sub-bass separation, so that when you're playing a bass note, there's not like two instruments that are playing similar notes. And also maybe push that low note up an octave. I like the energy of it, though. I like the drum and bassness. I think that the two things, like I said, the bass being rumbly and kind of out of control, and then the vocals they're so messy in the top end. They just kind of sound like a cloud of bright, harsh MP3 noise. So I don't know how to really solve that per se. Right here, it sounds a little cleaner. It's tough. I mean, if you're adding reverb and delay and stuff, I would maybe try not adding that. I'm not sure if you are or if it's just baked into the track, but I think the biggest thing is just like those vocals are just kind of like they're very messy, like digitally messy. Sorry, I need to put my phone on vibrate. There we go. Yeah, I think that's what I got to say about this one. It's the vibe is cool, musically it's cool, but you got to fix that bottom end and get it tighter and more controlled. And then also, if you can get your hands on a better quality vocal, or maybe just take the vocal out and make it an original, because the vocals, I like what the vocal's doing. She has a great voice, and the melody is, it's emotional, and it fits the vibe of the track, but it's just the quality of it just isn't quite there, So if you're ripping it off of YouTube or however you're getting it, if you get a better version, better quality of the vocal, then you're going to be much further ahead. Okay, that's what I got. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Maybe it's Maybelline. Ice Skyab, a very normal track. Somehow I feel like that may be sarcastic. This is very cool. I think what I would suggest is you got your kind of top bass and you got your bottom bass, and they are kind of quite far away from each other. The top bass is high passed quite a bit, and then the bottom sub bass is mostly sub range with a little bit of overtones on top of it. What I would try to do is either lower the high pass. I would probably lower the high pass on that top bass and maybe extend up the frequencies that are happening from that sub bass, because to me it feels like two different instruments when it should feel like one cohesive instrument. The sub bass should just be providing the bottom end of that instrument, and then the top, you know what I mean? Maybe you do. I don't know. You also probably should be side chaining, because when the kicks hit and the bass is there, it gets kind of like, I don't know what note it's playing sort of thing. So this part is cool. I think that the wonkiness of the timing is interesting, but I think you need to anchor it a little bit more in some, maybe there's like a crash cymbal that's going just quarter notes or something to allow us to more easily attach ourselves to it rhythmically, because it's quite complex. It's almost like math metal or something like that, the timing signature is odd, and that's not a bad thing. But usually I find that if you have like a very strange timing signature, at some point you got to give us something that's a little bit more periodic, or a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Predictable, maybe. Just something to anchor us so that we can nod our head while still appreciating the weirdness of the timing signature. The next thing is, like, you just built us up for a minute and a half, and then you dropped for like not even 30 seconds and then back to a breakdown. So arrangement wise, that doesn't really make any sense because we invested a lot of time, you know, we're supposed to be getting hyped, okay, and we finally get the drop. Hooray. But then the drop goes away and we're back to like, oh, you want more investment from us. You want us to chill out, but we didn't even really get a chance to anti-chill out. So I would say get to the drop a little sooner and then drop longer, because this just doesn't make sense from a return on investment point of view. If you think about like this style of music and you think about the build-ups and the breakdowns as the investment, you are there's two ways of looking at it. I look at it like an investment. You're investing in the build-up, you're investing in the hype, and then you get the payoff. Oh my God, the drop's so good. And you feel like you earned it because you built up to that. And then the other thing is the breakdown is kind of like, okay, I'm tired. I need a break from this. I need to remember what, you know, like chill feels like, so that you can then build me back up and I can invest more energy and time into that build up. And then I'm ready to rock again. I get a little breather. And this doesn't really accomplish either of those things. It kind of like this is a very long investment and a very short payoff, and then an undeserved breakdown, if that makes sense. So let's keep going. And like all these weird sounds are cool and everything, but I don't think that they justify like their own segments. You know, especially if we only dropped for less than 30 seconds, because now we're just kind of, I feel like it gets boring if there's these long sections of just like atmospheric, you know, sounds happening. I want more structure. I want to feel like I'm moving towards something, and I don't. I'm just kind of like, oh, those are cool sounds. But yeah, these parts would go a lot harder if you could connect the top bass and the bottom bass in a more packaged deal, so it feels like dun 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 dun, and that feels like a solid one bass as opposed to two different bass layers. So again, going back to the arrangement thing, I mean, if we think about this, okay, we're establishing atmosphere, you know what I mean? Like, let's do this, and we'll visualize it. Oopsies. Why is that? Why can't I use the snipping tool? There we go. Okay, so we have this section is kind of like establishing the sonic characteristics of the track, the mood, the atmosphere, the place that the track is going to live in. This is kind of questionable. It feels kind of like a build up, but it doesn't really build up, and then it breaks down, and then it builds up, and then finally we get drop. And then we break way down and we're back to this like establishing an atmosphere, and then we got this kind of a build up section, but the breakdown and then a build up, and then I'm going to assume we got a drop. So it's just, the arrangement's just clunky. It doesn't hold my attention. It just feels like bits and pieces of an idea put together. So you have lots of great ideas in here. I just think that they're not arranged the most optimally currently. Like, this part is sick. Why don't we get there sooner? Why isn't this the main part? Another thing that I'll say, and yes, Vegamags, I got your track. Sorry, it didn't come through the first time, but it's in there. Another thing I'll say is that I find a lot with your specific tracks that your synths and bass sounds and wubs are way louder than the drums. Like, listen to the drums and then listen to the sub and the bass sound. Like, I can even see this is the kick, this is the snare, and then this is the wub. And this isn't just this track. I've taken note of this in the past that a lot of your stuff, I think you gotta push the drums up a bit more because you are sidechaining the wubs, but you're sidechaining them to these little drums, and it doesn't really justify the side chain. Like, you can see the amplitude of the song when there's no drums, and then there's a snare, or maybe this is a snare. I don't know where they are, but anyway, those are my thoughts. I think this part is sick. I think the atmosphere is cool, but I would do it totally different. I would my arrangement would look roughly something like this. I'd maybe I'd get rid of one of those. I'd establish the kind of sonic characteristics of the and then I'd probably go from there to like this is kind of the way I would start the arrangement. And I'd probably have a melody in here somewhere, especially when we start moving towards the drop. I'd probably have a melody in there. But this to me makes a lot more sense with the arrangement in mind. And then, you could maybe use this as like coming out of the drop, you could drop into... and then maybe bring the melody back in during this part, and then maybe a little breakdown, which leads into the drop. Looks like I have an instrument stored in a closet. My question is what you workflow and make music. Do you record with real instruments like guitars? Yes, I do. What makes you feel comfortable with that? I've really had this position. I think I missed the first. I think I missed the first message. I've had. What problem are you having? Anyway, those are my thoughts on this track. I think it's cool. There's a lot of cool stuff, but I would reimagine the arrangement. Okay. Medicine Stark. I think this one says it's going to have rapping. Do I remember? Yeah, to be rapped on. So what I would say is I like this beat. I like the vibe. I don't really like the snare. It's a little weird. But that could be a personal taste thing. I'm not saying it's objectively a bad snare, but I don't really like the snare. The other thing is you've got like this choir or whatever, the female vocal thing that's going. I would probably let that stay in the intro, but when you drop to the beat, I get rid of it. And I don't know if it's part of like a sample that you're using. If it is, you could low pass everything, because especially if you're gonna have rapping on it or any sort of vocals at all, they're just gonna completely conflict with those female vocals that are quite prominent, right? So I would probably build it up, and if the rapper is gonna come in on the first hit of this beat here, I get rid of the vocals and just have the down. And then you can bring the vocals back in, and they might jive depending on the performance of the rapping that's on it. The vocals might jive with it, but the other thing is those vocals go the entire time so far. So it wouldn't be a bad thing to get away from the vocals so that when you bring them back in, it's kind of like designating this as a new section or designating this as like the chorus or the drop or whatever, right? So I think with the rap, I would just drop, I would simplify, have a dirty beat going like you have there with the bass, and maybe have like the little piano thing every once in a while and stuff, but have it really stripped back for the rapping. And then if there's a hook or something like that, you can bring in all the other elements. Now, I'm assuming you're going to have like vocals or something on this section. Yeah, I found like I think the snare, what I don't like about it, it's very boxy. It sounds like, instead of like this is how I will demonstrate my idea. So instead of like a snare that you would expect to see that has kind of like a transient and then it kind of tails off like this, yours kind of sounds like it just goes like this and then ends. Like it doesn't have like a snap to it with like this kind of shape. It just kind of has it's like here's a bunch of mid-range energy for a discrete amount of time and then it ends. So I don't know. I would maybe try a different snare just to see. If you love this snare and it's just a taste thing, then just disregard. But that's my thought. My thought is it doesn't have much of like a punch. Instead of like a doom, it's like a like it just like it's just there. And then again, I would probably go back and forth with pulling out some of those elements instead of having them run the whole time. And maybe it sounds too bare right now when you do that. But when you have the vocals there, I don't think you're going to need much more than like the drums and the bass and the vocals for the most part. And then you can bring in some of those supporting elements to help like lift up the rest of the track. But yeah, it's a cool beat for sure. Somebody said they sent, I think it was the guy that had the metal track. I don't see it in the feedback stream. I see something in production feedback, which is like the channel that the people on the server use to share their stuff throughout the week. But if you can throw it in, just because I don't know which file it is, just throw it in the feedback stream for today's date. Okay, next up we got No Cult and Duke Gray, Siren. Ooh, this one's got the word master in it. Isn't that cool? What do you mean my mixer? What happened to my mixer? What mixer? Oh. Is it sounding, is it distorting right now? It's not even light yet. Like when the music is playing, it's happening, or when I'm talking? Because maybe I'm just like talking very loud. Everything sounds okay on my end. Let's do this. Sounds like line. Okay, hold on. Let me pull up my own stream. This is gonna be fun. And see what you guys are talking about. My channel. Time on our own. When any sound is happening, music playing or you talking. I don't really hear it on my phone. Time on our own. Let's just try this. I'm gonna try this. I'll save it, close it. Don't look at my back or my desktop. And Is it like crispy? Is it gone? Is it different now? Does it sound any different? I'm sorry. I don't I don't know what it is, but I'm also not surprised by any means. This is very par for the course. So test 1 2. Check it to check to check. Are we distorting? Let's try the music. Like this has some like vinyl crackle to it, I think, but okay, let's push forward and we'll see.
It's not even light yet. Turn off our phones. As good as it can get. Time on our own. It's not even light yet. Turn off our phones. As good as it can get.
I hear that friggin' riser in there.
Yeah, as good as it can get. Yeah, as good as it can get. Time on our own. It's not even light yet. Turn off our phones. As good as it can get. Time on our own. It's not even light yet.
Okay, so a couple things. I feel like the pacing, and I don't know if the song is finished. It says master. I don't know if this is like done, but I'll still give you my thoughts, and then either I don't know. I'll give you my thoughts, and then you'll have my thoughts. So the pacing is quite slow. I like when it dropped, and I like when we got this guitar. I feel like you should take that guitar thing and tease it in the intro. But like everything leading up to this drop, it just felt slow to me. Not necessarily in terms of tempo, but in terms of pacing.
It's not even light yet. Turn off our phones.
Yeah, so I honestly, I would maybe cut this section. I think that section just kind of breaks the song up, and you could use it somewhere else, maybe as like a bridge or something. And then you could kind of have like the build-up elements working in amongst this section instead, and build up and then drop here. And then because you've teased the guitar lead thing, if you tease that in here somewhere, then when it comes back in, we're already familiar with it and we're ready to rock it and we're on the same team, right? But I feel like this section, although... Or maybe what I would do is I would try to combine this in amongst this so that you still have like the chugs and stuff. I think like the notes change or something, but at any rate, because it's just kind of like loitering and it's just kind of like chilling out and slowly progressing through, it just takes too long to get to the drop, or it feels like it takes too long to get to the drop. So that's my first thought. My next thought is in the drop, especially when the guitar comes in, if you listen specifically to the drums while everything else is happening, the drums don't seem to be going that hard. You know what I mean? Like, it just sounds like the drummer's on the hi-hat and like hitting the snare. It just doesn't, I don't feel like the whole band is rocking out. I feel like the guitarist is rocking out for sure, but I don't feel necessarily like the drums are rocking out. I'd probably go for like a looser snare that's more of like a ching, like it's got more body to it. This snare is more like a hip hop snare, but the track, especially with the guitar going, is kind of like rock out. But then we have the hip hop snare, especially when it sidechains to the hip hop snare, everything ducks and we just have this kind of like thunk. But musically it's dope and I like the production. I think that the drums should go harder and maybe a little looser, which is oh no, I was thinking the wrong one. Never mind. Okay, so let's keep going. You know, I was at the gym yesterday and I was thinking about this, having gym thoughts. It's crazy as producers, because this is what was happening. I was listening to this track and I really liked the sound of, I don't know if it was the snare. I think it was the snare. And I was listening no, it wasn't the snare. It was like a bass hit, but it sounded like it had like kind of a snare mixed in with it to give it like a transient snap at the start. And I thought to myself that as music producers, we have like parts inside of our brain physically, like there's areas inside of our brain that are dedicated to like listening for transients. You know what I mean? Like there's a part of my brain that when I listen to something and I want to focus on the transients, there's a physical chunk, little piece of my brain that lights up and it's like, let's listen to the transients now. And then it has to take the information from my ear and like think about how loud it is and how it trails off over time and it uses memory. And anyway, I think that's pretty cool. Let's move on.
Time on our own. It's not even light yet. Turn off our phones. As good as it can get. Yeah. 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 As good as it can get. Time on our own.
Yeah, when it goes from like it feels like it's building up and then I feel like we have to like start to build up again, you know? In order for this arrangement to work, I would think you'd need like more drums happening or something cuz like we're just kind of like slowly walking along and then it feels like there's a big moment about to happen and then we're just slowly walking along more with different instruments, but still just the same. But those sections are super cool. I just think the drums don't necessarily fit because of like the closed hi-hats, like the trappy kind of hi-hats and the hip-hop snare. They don't really feel like they're rocking out. But the track is cool. I think the track's cool. I would change the arrangement and try some more aggressive drums. Okay, let's move on. Cloudy Parallels. Is everything good? Am I distorting still, or did we solve the problem by restarting my fucking interface? Okay, and Joss and Apollo Kid. Afterglow, let's have a listen.
Wanting something I can't have, feeling broken, but you can't give up a fight. I let you live in your own mind, hoping for nothing, but we keep on taking for love. Weightless in the skies, one more day of lies. I'm dancing with my heart
So this is sick so far. When we get to this
I'm dancing with my heart.
I think the drum should be more present. I feel like there's some drums in there, but it almost feels like a 50 Shades of Grey, like doo-doo, with like a tambourine as a snare or something. I feel like I want there to be kind of war drums kind of happening, but I can't really tell if there is. Yeah, I think there is jump, 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 but they're so quiet that I'm like questioning whether they're there or not.
I've been waiting for the afterglow. For the afterglow. I've been waiting for the
Okay, so the chorus or the drop section is cool. I like it. I find it quite bass heavy, and what I would try doing is taking your guitar track or tracks, the ones that are playing kind of single notes, create a copy of them, put them up an octave through whatever means you pitch shift things, and mix them in a little. Like, I would probably not mix them in full volume, but I would mix in a little bit more, because a normal guitar signal is very heavy in the mid range, but kind of falls off in the top end. And if you listen to like rock music and there's a part where it's just the guitar, it feels very mid range. And then what fills it out is when the drums and the cymbals come in and they kind of add the top end into the guitar. And as a band, we have the bass, we have the mid range, and we have the top end. And the bass comes from the bass and the kick drum. The mid range comes from the vocals, the guitar, that sort of stuff. And then the top end mostly comes from like cymbals and stuff like that, right? But with this, it feels very kind of like the drop has a very guitar signature sonic characteristic to it. So sometimes what I try doing, and it may not work in this, but it's worth a try, is I'll take my guitar tracks and I'll pitch them up an octave, and that'll take all that mid-range and put it up an octave. And now we have the guitar, but we have like some airiness to the guitar. And especially when it's a wall of sound like this, you probably can get away with it, and it'll just feel like you've added like this airiness to the guitar. But it does come down to what method you use to pitch shift it and how you mix it in. You could even get creative with it, like you take your take your octave up guitar, high pass it, and only kind of use the top end frequencies from that pitched up signal, and then they're kind of like surgically implanted into the original guitar track. But I try that. And then when we get to like the snare here, I don't really hear the snare. Like, I know it's there and I can hear it, but it's not. I don't necessarily think it should be louder, although that would be the easiest thing to try, is just turn it up maybe like 2 or 3 dB and see what it sounds like. But to me, I think the snare, when you bring it in, it should be like, oh yeah, that's the snare. Like the first few hits, I'm like, oh, I think the snare's in. Okay, the snare's here. So I would probably push that up in the mix one way or another to get it more present. Let's keep going.
Chasing echoes in the dark, every heartbeat pulling me back to your name. But we both know it's not the same. Falling deeper, but we keep on saying we're fine. I will testify for one more sleepless night. I'm dancing with my heart, I don't know how to say let go. The ocean in me overflows, hit me with.
Again, like I really think that some form of drum should come, or percussion of some sort should come in here to really make us feel like we are charging forward towards the battle.
I'm gonna let it burn tonight.
So like the snare in this section sounds present. I'm wondering if maybe I feel like it's probably because in the 4 to the floor section in the first drop, it's being layered on top of the kick drum, and I feel like the kick drum and the snare drum are causing some stuff to happen at some point, either in a bus compression or in the master or something like that, where the kick and the snare are struggling to exist at the same time. But in the second section, in the second drop, I feel like the snare sounds good. But yeah, cool track. Sounds dope. All right, let's move on. By Your Side Bounce Mastered. Well, I may or may not disagree with you on the mastered thing. Look, but we'll listen first. So I like this. Melodically, it's great. Chord progression's great. The 192 kilobit per second MP3 is not great, so I would not render it as that. I'd render it as a 320. But besides that, I find that the drop just kind of seems to happen without any sort of fanfare or like gusto. Just kind of, it's like, and now the drop, and here it is, as opposed to like, are you guys ready? Yes, we're ready. Give us the drop, and then you give the drop. It just kind of just seems like it happens. There are different ways of solving that, but I do find that like your energy level is, it kind of looks like this. Like you're building up, and then it's just kind of like drop. So like there's no real moment where we're like, oh my God, this is the drop. So, you know, there's different things. You could build it up and then kind of drop it out with a little drum fill and come back in. I think either way, your drop section has to be probably a bit more power. And then the other thing is there's some elements that trail over. That what note is that? Hold on. I can't do it with my mouth. It's too high. Let's do it. That note. So there's like this note that kind of trails from the buildup into the drop. And when you have stuff that like goes from, it's not an F, it's a B. When you have stuff that trails from one section into the other, it's it breaks up the impact of the drop. So I try to create more of a separation from the drop to the build. Another thing is the S's in the vocal cut thing are like, it's kind of hard to hear the vocal cut thing. I think it's cool, but it's really buried in the mix. But then every once in a while, we'll just hear like the S's cut through the mix really brightly. And it's kind of off-putting because we're not really hearing the vocal most of the time, except every once in a while, you just hear like a you know what I mean? Like right there, that is the S. So I'd probably like de-S the vocals and then try to get it up in the mix a little bit more. And maybe try using that as the main melody in those sections and take out like the kind of organ sounding lead that's there. Like maybe lean more heavily on the vocal. And then I would say probably it should be mastered more aggressively. You really hear the S's when I do that, right? But yeah, it's a cool track. I like it musically. I like the vibe. Like just with a quick master, we gained 6 dB. I also kind of find that the melody right off the top of the drop, it's just like running around doing things. And I don't really detect like a hookiness to it. I don't really hear much of like something that's memorable. Now, that's not to say that the whole solo has to be, or the whole lead sound has to just be playing hooks the whole time, but I do kind of find that the melody just walks around quite a bit. So this is very loud. Yeah, that's what I think. I think it's a cool track though. All right, Aiden Dodge and Divert. In Your Arms Snippet in uppercase.
Try to keep me in the dark. I just wanna be in your arms. In your arms.
Okay, I like the vocals, but what happened to the top end? It feels like there's no top end of the vocals, especially when the S's are there. It almost sounds like it's been de-S'd too much. Like it sounds like you've given yourself a lisp with the de-esser, which is quite common.
In your arms. Oh baby, won't you be the key to my heart? I've kept it shut too long, now I need it unlocked.
So the vocals feel weird mix-wise. Like they have like a resonant oh, that's not what I wanted. They have like a resonant something down here. Hold on.
In your arms. Oh baby, won't you be the key to my heart?
Yeah, like 200 to 300 hertz, there's like a big resonant peak, and then it just doesn't feel like the vocals have a whole lot of top end to them.
In your arms.
See what I mean? Like I can add a shit ton of top end and it sounds better.
In your arms. In your arms. In your arms. In your arms. In your arms.
But to hear that resonant in the vocals, it's like that kind of frequency.
Won't you be the key to my heart? Won't you, the key to my
Can really hear it on the word key.
key to my heart, key to my heart.
The vocals, the melody and the writing is great though. I'm just the thing I'm stuck on is just the shape of the vocals in terms of the frequency like spectrum.
I've kept it shut too long, now I need it unlocked. Your warmth on my skin's why I'm staying alive. You give me everything that I need to survive. And I know you hear me calling from miles away. I just wish that you and I just wish.
Like if you listen here, it almost sounds like I got water in my ears.
I just wish.
So yeah, I'd look at the processing on the vocals.
That you and I can speak face to face. Try to keep me in the dark. I just wanna be in your arms. In your arms. I just wanna be in your arms. In your arms. In your arms.
So yeah, that would be my next step. Figure out why I think it's aggressively de-essed, and that might actually be pulling some of the top end down even when you're not using the letter S. Sometimes that can happen if you have the de-esser set so aggressively that just like when you're talking, it's like, oh my God, that's an S, and it's pulling the top end down. The other thing is, I feel like you don't quite have the hook yet. I feel like you have like a pre-chorus or even maybe a chorus, the main singing part. But I don't know. I feel like there's a hook that comes after, like the verse is good, then the pre-chorus or chorus, whatever you want to call this. But then I feel like it's got to go into something that's a bit more hooky, because these are all very long, strung out lines, right? All the words are all sung and the lines are far apart. And I feel like I want to contrast that with the hook that maybe goes with the beat. So like you maybe have this section. And then there's a beat and there's like a hooky section with a bit more, not rapping per se, but a bit more rhythmic singing and maybe a bit more repetitive. That's kind of like the hook of the song. But yeah, it's cool. I like it. Good job. Keep going. The end. Oops. Okay. Zetmo Inlogical. Inlogical. Okay. I just can't read. Holy fuck. That was wild. The only feedback I have is like the parts that aren't the drop, maybe just ease off a little bit, you know? Because I don't even think I have a good reason besides my ears. I think that's my only real feedback. The drops are sick. They're like so like middle finger to everything, and I like that. The like But yeah, I just think like if the parts, and I'm not saying they need to be super quiet or super dynamic, but like if the parts that weren't the drop were just like a little quieter, then I don't know, it might be better. But besides that, I actually fucking dig it. I think it's aggressive and it's a big fuck you to tonality. And I like it. I don't know. That's what I think. I think you should just quiet the other parts down. That's at the end. Good job. Straight caca. Okay. Expectations are low. Let's have a listen. Is that Weeble Wobble? I mean, this is like ADHD distilled into a song, with a sprinkling of probably not cleared samples, but I like it. It's fun overall. Because that's definitely Eliminate. Is that who makes Weeble Wobble? A Weeble Wobble for the love of the grabber, you know? And I'm going to assume that that is not the only sample that is used in this track. This track is really fun. It sounds like a bootleg would get demonetized 14 times in a row on YouTube, but I mean, for like a DJ track to play out and just have people constantly being mind blown by the weird switch ups, it's pretty dope. I would probably master it a bit harder. That might be my only real feedback on this one, because you get some headroom, and this is the type of track that I don't really think you need a whole lot of headroom on. I think you want to push. It kind of reminds me of like Savant's earlier stuff. Let's do that. Yeah, like you could easily, especially if you got into the mix, you could probably get 3 or 4 dB of loudness out of this without really sacrificing a whole lot. So I think that's my only real suggestion, is just to go a little harder on the master, and then don't expect to ever be able to put this out without getting copyright claims. All right, very cool. Let's move on. And that's okay. I mean, like sometimes I do it sometimes. You take some stuff, mash it together, you know, take a Missy Elliott song, put it together with Sandstorm, and now you have a fun track that you'll never be able to make any money off of, but who cares? You're going to have fun with it and play it out sometimes, or like show your friends. So it's cool. I like it. Let's check out this one. Nemkai End of Time Demo. Demo is in uppercase, so I guess we should keep that in mind. Let's make sure I'm not mastering this.
Are you okay?
So like the bass is very, very loud. Especially when you contrast it against like this drum fill.
Are you okay?
And then it's just like, oh my God, the bass is 1,000 times louder. And then when the lead comes in, the bass and the lead almost are, the drums are getting sidechained to them. Like it almost sounds like the opposite of what you would normally do, because the drums disappear. Musically, it's dope. I really like it. I think the mix is quite off, though. It's mostly the bass needs to come down, drums need to go up, that lead probably needs to go down. With this style of music, you really want the drums to be driving it, and that's where the side chaining comes in, because then you can have the drums be very loud, and you can have everything else be quite loud as well, but they just kind of get out of the way for the drums, and that also has the added benefit of making the drums sound kind of psychologically more powerful, because if everything is getting out of the way when the drums hit, that leads us to believe kind of like logically that the drums are more powerful. So I would probably sidechain the stuff to the drum, to the kick and the snare, and I'd get your kick and your snare, I'd solo your drums and play it and see how quiet they are, and then get them like quite loud until they're starting to interact with the master limiter. Then sidechain your other elements and start bringing them up until they feel like they're about the same volume. You know, you want the kick, you want the kick and the snare, and then like your main elements to all feel like they're at least in the same ballpark. Right now, the drums are just like very tiny underneath everything. This part kind of reminds me of the song Girl in the Fire, I think by Pendulum. But it's a cool track. I like this breakdown in the middle. It's cool. I didn't expect the acoustic guitar, but I didn't mind it. I think maybe the amplitude might drop down a little too far during this breakdown, you know, like you go way down to very quiet. The acoustic guitar part could be quite a bit louder, I think. But the biggest problem is the bass is way too loud versus the other stuff, and the drums do not cut through. So work on that. Okay, last couple. We got Vaga Mag's Heat.
Let's go.
This is really fun. So to me, this part right here is sick, and it's kind of, I would say, the more recognizable part. Like this part, that's not to say that this part isn't good. It is, but this is more like it's a cool synth being sustained, playing like a chord progression. This has got some more like style and character to it. So I would probably try to figure out how to tease that in the start of the song, like building up and stuff, the dun 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 bum 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 bum, maybe in the build up, you know, because when that happened, I was like, damn, this is cool, but I did not expect this. And that's not necessarily what you want, you know. You want to already be familiar with the dun 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 thing, and then when it happens in the drop, and you could do it with a different instrument, you could band pass it so it's very kind of weak sounding in the build up, and then you give us the full thing in the drop. But just familiarizing the audience with the so that when it happens, we're like, oh fuck yeah, I already know this, so let's go, you know. So why is there no bass in this section? Is it too low? Let me put my hand on my subwoofer. Not really. There's not really any sub bass in this. I feel like there should be. So I think overall, okay, there you go. Overall, I think you have gathered a lot of very cool and fun sections. It does feel a little ADHD to me in terms of like, okay, now we are doing this thing, which I like, but I didn't expect it. And then again, wow, okay, now we're doing this thing. So I think to make the track stronger, you should try to decide what is kind of the main theme. And then you should structure the song around that main theme. That main theme should be built up to and then worshipped as the main theme. And you can still do all kinds of crazy shit and flip it around and do funny, like flips and stuff like that. That's fine. But I think the mainstay should be there. You should have kind of like the old faithful part of the drop sort of thing that we know and love. And you can vary it a little bit, but it's always there. It's predictable. We know it's reliable that we're gonna drop and do this thing. And then once you have like a more predictable arrangement, I think is what I'm trying to say, then you go and you switch it up and you add spice. Right now it's like you've added like the entire bottle of oregano, and I think maybe ground beef should be the main thing and then add oregano to taste. But that's just my thought. I mean, if you want to keep it full on, like crazy switch ups every time, every section, it's different. It never really repeats itself. That's fine too. But I think in terms of like the track being easier to follow, I don't think that's going to be a bad thing if it was just a little easier to follow. And I think that's pretty much it. I think all the other stuff I said is my thoughts and feelings. Okay, let's listen to the last one of the day. I Need Help. And again, if whoever was here before that wanted me to listen to a metal track, if you send it to me, I'll listen to it, but I'm not sure where you put it. Okay, this one's called I Need Help and Ideas with a Drop, but also what do you think so far? Wow. Okay. So I'm not really, is this the kind of track that drops? Is this the style of music that builds up and then somebody says 1, 2, 3, and then it drops with a bass beat, with a bass. I'm not sure. To me, this sounds more like I'll use one of my songs as a reference. I have a song with Jello and Moy called Wayfarer. And I feel like this might be a good reference for this song. I think that what you have here is it's a good idea. It sounds very kind of Tron, like the Daft Punk Tron soundtrack might be a good reference too. But I don't know if it necessarily should have like a huge build-up and a huge drop. Like, so like this track is, well, it's over 6 minutes long, and it just keeps, it's like a train. It just keeps building and pulling and building. There's no real big moment of like a drop. It was more of a progressive like journey as opposed to like build, drop, breakdown, build, drop. You know, like it's not like that style of track. And I'm not sure that this is the style of track where you need to necessarily worry about having this crazy drop. What I will say is, it sounds like it is atmospheric, but it sounds like it doesn't have that much atmosphere, if that makes sense. So, for example, at the start here, we have an arpeggiator, which is fine as is. It's low pass. It's got delay and reverb and stuff on it. But that's it. We just have that. So I would try to maybe add in some more, like if we go back to that track, what's at the start? So we've got that do. That's kind of like our version of your arpeggiator. But then you can hear all the other sounds that are there that are kind of establishing a soundscape or a place, and it makes you feel like you're somewhere, right? I feel like that's mostly what this track is missing right now. Everything that's here sounds pretty cool. I was quite, I wouldn't say thrown off, but I was surprised when the kick hit because I didn't know we were doing like a triplet thing. And that was cool. It was a cool moment, but I don't like the sound of the kick. It just kind of sounds like a 909 that's been like EQ'd weirdly. I don't know. I understand like probably cutting the low end out of it because you kind of want it to be like a subtle build up sort of thing, but the kick just doesn't sound that good. Maybe like, okay, let's go back here and see what. So we're actually not doing a 4 to the floor, and I'm not suggesting that you necessarily use that song as a reference, but that's what came to mind because of the way this continually builds. But I don't like the sound of the kick. Same with the snare that comes in here. They're just kind of so small, right? Like the kick is just this tiny little like EQ'd kick, and then the snare is very quiet. But the track feels like it's trying to be interstellar. The track feels like it's trying to be outer space epic, but that doesn't really jive with like a little kick and a little snare. I would maybe have like a bit of like a thump instead. Is it MP3 only? For what? To submit? No, you can submit a wave too. But yeah, I think I would I'd forget about the drums for right now, and I would try to build more of a soundscape around this, like what I was saying with all the other elements, the pads and the you could use a tool called Paul Stretch. If you're gonna submit, you better do it in like 3 minutes because I'm pretty much done. So you can submit, but it's got to be now. So yeah, I would work on a soundscape, and I'd probably trash the drums for now. And I would maybe okay, which one do you want me to listen to? I'm going to listen to one. So pick one of your two. Otherwise, I will pick the first one. Anyway, back to this. My final thoughts. Work on the soundscape. Get rid of the drums. Try to develop the track, and don't worry so much about about a drop necessarily, because not every track needs a drop, and I'm not sure that this is the style of track that demands a crazy wubby drop. All right, last one of the day. We got the last minute submitter here. Syntax ID2 version 1 encrypted. I don't know what that means. Am I going to get a virus? Here we go.
Hard to see. Tell me, is this what you need from me? Tell me if I'm out of place. Would you give your all to me? All I ever need, and all I can see, you're going far from me. It was all a dream. I could hardly sleep with you haunting me, like you're a part of me. Was that so hard to see?
Okay, let me stop here for a sec. So I have a couple questions. What's with this hard cut? I mean, the track is rendered at 192, which is, you should render it at 320 if it's going to be an MP3. But I'm just confused as to why there seems to be various bit rates in this song. See, like we got this up here. But you can see this like hard cutoff line underneath it, which I'm a little confused about. The vocals feel a little buried. So you can see this hard line again. I'm not quite sure what that is, but anyway, the vocals feel buried, and the 192 kilobit per second isn't helping that, but it's also not the cause. I think that the track leading up to the drop is like, it's too loud and aggressive to the point where the vocals are getting buried amongst all of like the orchestral kind of stuff. Like I can't understand the words. My next thing is, this fucking buildup is egregious. I don't know if this is like the way that things are now, maybe. But like the build, I don't know. Maybe I'm old. Maybe I'm old school. I ain't old. I'm just old school. But the buildup just kind of, I'm just like, when is the drop going to happen? Don't know when the drop's going to happen. Cause at first, like this was a crazy sound. And it got me excited. But then I was like, oh, okay, we're going to do like a fake out buildup thing. And then we did a fake out buildup thing, but then we got to another fake out buildup thing. Yeah, and that's why I'm saying like, hey, maybe that's the way things are now. But for me personally, and that's all this is just me giving you my personal thoughts. But for me personally, I'm not a big fan of like fake outs. And I feel like we just got 3 fake outs in a row with this. I think that's why I used the term egregious. The drop is pretty good, pretty loud. Now, I'm not sure, again, the 192 kilobit per second doesn't play nice, especially with super atonal stuff like this, with like the very, I don't know, dissonance, like the noise, I guess, for lack of a better word, how noisy and distorted the wubs are. I'm not sure if some of the problems I'm having are coming from the bit rate of like the 192, but I do find that like there's, hold on. Like, what note are we playing here? It sounds very, very low. Like C or something. Yeah, C is low. C is only one better than B, and B is the worst key to write in, for bass music anyway. See, the problem is that you've got like all of this crazy, aggressive, distorted wub sounds, whatever the kids are calling it these days, the aggressive bass noises, and they're all very atonal and in the top end and high end, mid range, all that stuff. There's not a lot of tonality to it. And then on your sub bass, you're playing a C, which is kind of too low to really hear very well. It's getting down to the point where you can feel it, but you can't really hear it that well when you play a C in that octave, right? So now you have a sub bass that's supposed to be kind of providing the note information, which it does in different parts of the drop where you move around and play a different note. But when you're playing that main C, it's kind of like I can't hear the note in the sub bass because it's too low, and I can't hear the note in the wub bass because it's too distorted and noisy. So now we're just kind of like rocking out to noise. And that's maybe what you're after and maybe not a bad thing. But that, to me, if this track was played in D instead of C, all of a sudden when you play that low note, we can hear the D on the sub bass, and then we're not so concerned that all of your crazy wubs are atonal and super noisy and distorted because we're getting like that solid foundation when you play the D. So to me, I would at least experiment, like save it as a new file or whatever, and just take your drop and shift it up to D and see if all of a sudden now you can, like, now that when you're playing the main part of the drop where you're playing the root note, now all of a sudden, okay, that's a D. Because when I play this right here, like, I don't know, it's there. I think it's worth experimenting. Well, this will be on, these all go on my YouTube channel, so you can always check it out after the fact if you don't want to write things down. Although writing on paper is a good practice. Anyway, I think it's worth a try because D is not that much higher than C, so you're not like losing a lot of like depth and like balls, for the lack of better words, but it will get you out of that like subsonic frequency range and up into like the more audible range. But yeah, I think my biggest thing is vocals are buried, bit rate sucks, build up is, you've tantalized me past the point of me wanting to be tantalized. So the tantalization has overstayed its welcome. And then maybe just try shifting the whole thing up to D and see if that drop section has a bit more clarity, I guess, in terms of, the notes you're playing. And that's all I got for you. But I do this every Friday. So now that you're on the Discord server, feel free to submit a track next week and we'll have a listen. Okay, that's it. This is me. This is everything and all. And thank you guys for hanging out. I always enjoy hanging out with you. I got this today. It's a cheap, probably questionably legal retro gaming console. So tonight when I go to bed, I'm going to play Majora's Mask and relive my childhood. Okay, I love you. Have a good weekend. Goodbye. Here we go.